So I am here to talk to you about another of the yamas. I've had a little break from working through these, I guess, for the last sort of few weeks during the challenge for Strength for Chaturanga and also during the launch. But I'm going to be going live weekly again, just kind of talking to you about different ideas, different concepts, different things that I've written blogs about, but just trying to like really talk about all things kind of yoga and the wider perspective. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to look at Aparigraha this week because it means non-greed and we are approaching Christmas, which seems quite apt to talk about non-greed during this time. And it's a really interesting year in that a lot of people are out of work, a lot of people are working quite differently, a lot of people aren't going to see their families. And I think in a year like this, we've kind of all taken a bit of a pause and thought about what is it exactly that we want. And I know for myself, this Christmas I would have loved to have been able to see my family in Canada specifically. I'm quite lucky that I get to see my British family quite often. One part of my family just lives up the road, so even in lockdown, you know, we could see each other walking the dogs. But it has been over a year now since I've been home to Canada, and I think, you know, that is what I really want for Christmas. But sometimes it takes a pandemic for people to kind of really start to take stock and realize, you know, what is it that we want. So I'm going to be talking about non-greed, Aparigraha today. I've done lots of chats about different yamas and niyamas before. So like ahimsa, non-harming, satya, non-stealing. So these kinds of concepts I have talked about. But like always, I'm going to talk about kind of ancient yoga philosophy with a modern twist. So what I want you to do right now, wherever you are, is to just look around, okay? Look around you and just notice all of the stuff. So what you can see, okay, looks quite tidy, looks quite neat, but if you could see the periphery around me, there is books, there are glasses, there are tons of bits of tech, you know, it's just quite honestly quite messy. And I want you to do the same. I want you to just look around, okay, and just notice some things. Notice, is the stuff that you have creating a mess? When you look around, does the stuff that you see make you feel happy, positive, good? Is the stuff around you adding any kind of value? Okay, so I don't mean monetary value, but, you know, that thing that you can see in front of you, is it providing your life any joy, any happiness? Does it make things easier? Or is it just something that you have? Okay, another way to look at that is, do the items that you're looking at have a purpose? Okay, so we, I think as humans, have a habit of inherently collecting stuff, okay? I think we all have a little bit of hoarder inside of us, even the minimalist person. And, you know, it is a tendency of ours to kind of collect and hoard and establish. And some of these things are really kind of traditionally ingrained in us, okay? Depending on where you are in your life, when you're in high school, when you're going into university, collecting degrees, collecting books, collecting boyfriends and girlfriends, when you kind of get into your 30s, collecting children, collecting cars, collecting property. This idea of I need to do these things because that's where I am in my life. Okay, so we have this quality of collecting stuff, belongings, collectibles, and how many of these things that you are collecting, how many of them are actually more or less dust gathering devices? Christmas is a real time of year where we see this kind of happen tenfold, and it happens a lot when there are a lot of kids. It's been less so in my life recently because there haven't been so many children running around, but I think it's kind of come back into light with grandchildren and, you know, brothers having babies, sisters having babies, and just the amount of stuff that kids get on Christmas. And of course that's amazing, it's fun, but it's just this kind of buying for buying's sake, buying for Christmas sake, And then a lot of those toys will kind of be useless or unused within a matter of months, if not a matter of days. Because often it's not stuff that kids really need. They might want it, or even when kids are younger, people are just buying it because that's what Christmas has kind of been to us. So we have probably all collected things when we were kids, and maybe even still carry on doing so as adults. I've got a real habit of collecting and buying yoga clothes. Especially in lockdown, I think that it's made it worse in that I just live in comfortable clothes now. But the amount of leggings and sports bras and sports tops that I have, it's ridiculous. I now have 3 drawers in a dresser just filled with yoga clothes. And there's stuff probably on the bottom of the pile that I haven't worn in ages. So that is something that I'm definitely guilty of. You know, things like records, smelly candles. I've been to some friends' houses and they just have a hoard of skincare stuff or shampoos and miniature soaps and shampoos. That's a really weird one. We had to stop doing this. We don't go to as many hotels anymore, but we just bring them home and then we'd never use them because the next hotel we went to would have those things. So when these things are physical belongings, we can quite easily notice this, okay? So especially when you live with other people, when you start hoarding things, when you start collecting things, you know, it starts to become noticeable, and we all have that kind of spring cleaning thing that happens where we're like, oh, we feel like we're being drowned by our stuff, and we have a big haul and big clear it out. Mary Kondo has really helped, I think, a lot of people with this. Some people are better than others. I love to do a little clear out. When we started Airbnb-ing our house, we did a massive kind of clear out, and that was really good. But I want us to think beyond the physical today. Okay, so in the 21st century, we have started a digital collecting habit, and this sometimes can be more swamping and more overwhelming and more drowning than those physical things. And this is on a whole new level of out of control, okay? And I'll talk a lot about this. If they were to do a show on hoarders and look at people's laptops, I think it would be way more overwhelming than walking into somebody's house, okay? If you could, without clearing up your desktop, have to show someone, what would that reveal about you and your hoarding or your disorganization in terms of digital cleanliness, clutter, etc.? So, I'd say probably about 6 months ago, Harriet told me a really good bit of gossip, and obviously I can't guarantee that it's true, but I do like to really tell the story because I think it's quite humanizing of the person who it's about. So it's about Beyonce Bae, who I'm obsessed with, who can do no wrong, and I almost see as like non-human, like she's a bit of a robot. And she was at a party with someone else that's like a, you know, 7 levels of separation type of thing. And Beyonce got out her laptop to show her new video to this person who was at this party, who we then heard down the line this story about. And as this person went to watch the video, Beyonce had to find it on her desktop, and her desktop was an absolute mess, like a complete and utter disaster. And this is the part of the story that I love, okay? It was proper disorganized. There were files all over the place. You know when the files like are overlapping each other, it was that bad. And what I love about this hoarding and this disorganization is that it can happen to anyone. Okay, even someone as sort of untouchable as Beyonce, as perfect as Beyonce, she can, you know, be dealing with this apagaria, this non-greed, this digital overwhelm. So we really are all the same, and that's what I love about the story. Okay, I digress. Let's go back to what I was talking about. So this idea of digital hoarding, I think I've got over like 5,200 pictures on my phone right now. I got a message the other day saying that my iCloud for the second time this year is about to fill up. So this weekend I'm going to spend some time clearing out my digital files and just putting them in the right place. You know, digital camera files from like when I was a teenager. I've just got those stored in loads of places. You know, I might not get rid of all of them, but it'd be good to go through them. But this idea of like hoarding digital stuff is really, it can really drown us, and it can be really overwhelming. So this idea of hoarding, okay, and this idea of greed can happen on the yoga mat as well. What do I mean by this? Okay, so before, and I talked a little bit about this already, but before you even get to the mat, think about your exercise clothing drawer in the house, okay? I just sort of admitted to this earlier, but it is probably 2/3 of my dresser is exercise clothing. It can become quite an intense habit. But you know, that if you're like, you know, if you're a yogi, that you might resonate with what I'm talking about here. Also the sports bras, oh my goodness, the sports bras that have like holes and they're a bit worn out, but we hold on to them, okay? The elastic's completely gone, they're 10 years old, but we've still got them in our drawer, like this idea of hoarding. So, you know, how you rush, this is a really interesting one. So, it's not so much true right now because we're not practicing in yoga studios, but, you know, as a yoga teacher, as someone who runs a yoga studio, the obsession that people have with going to the exact same place, so this hoarding, this sort of that space is mine mentality, and it will like throw people completely off if that spot isn't available to them. And you might be the same in the house, you know, it has to be that time of day, or it has to be your mat in a specific way. And if anybody goes into that space, you know, you see it as yours and your time and this hoarding of that time. Truth is that we all get attached to objects, to things, to places, okay? Be it a physical thing, be it a time, be it something that's not tangible in any way. And they become part of our identity, and we start to fear the loss of them because of how it makes us kind of, it might make us feel less if we don't have them, okay? So it becomes part of our identity and we have to hold on to them. Now, if we continue to have these relationships with things that really aren't part of our identity, we are not a yoga mat, we are not a sports bra, we are not a digital file on our computer. That's not our identity. And if we continue to collect these things and all of this stuff as we get older, and as we become perhaps more wealthy and we collect experiences, then this anxiety of protecting and hoarding and sort of safeguarding will only become worse, okay? And the reason I bring this up is because I was living in London for about 2 years. I was living in Golders Green in West London in a really lovely house, and I was broken into. And everything that I owned was stolen from me. The worst bit was that I had this backpack that I backpacked New Zealand and Fiji with and Australia with, and it had all these patches on it, and it like meant the world to me. And they basically took all of my stuff and packed it in that backpack and then took my backpack. I had a DSLR camera, so really good digital camera, my MacBook Pro. I don't think I had any like really expensive jewelry, but you know, a lot of sentimental stuff. My CDs, that's a funny thing to talk about now, but it was really heartbreaking when my CDs got stolen. And yeah, obviously they took my backpack. And I remember going back into my room after the burglars had left, and I remember kind of looking around at my belongings, and you know, everything was moved and weird. My drawers were half open, things were kind of shifted. And in that moment, what really mattered is sort of that sense of security had been stolen from me rather than those things that were taken. And I spent a really long time not replacing my stuff. I didn't replace my camera, I didn't replace my laptop. I mean, I kind of lived a little bit nomadic, and it felt really good. I just had my laptop from work. I can't even remember what it was so crap. But I really felt free and happy. I didn't have all of that stuff bogging me down. I didn't have that pressure of my laptop and everything that included along with the laptop. And the shackles of this stuff were kind of taken off of me. Okay, so if we looked around, how many things do we own are almost like these shackles? Okay, how many of the, you know, are you currently paying for a car that is making you more unhappy than happy? Is it keeping you from doing the things you want? How has your mortgage? How much of your house are you actually using? And you know, these kinds of things that we're paying for, these things that we're hoarding and collecting, but how happy are they actually making us? Okay. Another interesting thing to look at is, what else do we hoard? People. Have you ever felt really protective and kind of obsessive about a friend or a person? I think if we all reflect back to our teenage years, we'll definitely resonate with that. Feeling like you have ownership over a boy or a girl or a friend. Phone numbers. Okay, how many phone numbers do you hoard? How many Facebook friends do you have? How many Instagram followers? This idea of like hoarding. Old texts. How many of you are like collectors of plans? How many of you have to have, like the whole calendar filled up with plans? So when is the last time that you really allowed yourself to have zero plans? And I think all of us have gotten a lot better at this with lockdown. But I know some people who constantly have plans. Like I can't get a coffee in with them for months from now because they're that booked up. So I want you to think about the overwhelming urge to get the newest and coolest whatever, which is heightened at Christmas, okay? Especially with Black Friday that just happened. It's just this like constant pressure to rush to the shop, to purchase online, this, obsessiveness that maybe we only use for a week and then the thrill fades away and we get rid of it, okay? And all of media, okay, the whole advertising system is based around this. Create this idea of scarcity. You must buy it now, you must buy it now, you must buy it now. Can we step away from that and can we be less manipulated by it? Okay, I had so many times where I had loads of stuff in my basket, and sometimes I'll go on ASOS and I'll just, I put loads of stuff in a basket and then I like sit with that basket for a while, and I would say like 90% of the time don't buy the basket because it's almost the thrill of putting the stuff in the basket, but I don't need the things. And I know that's crazy and probably still the wrong thing to do, but the step of purchasing it and then having that stuff I never take. So weird little insight into me and my obsessive shopping that is a lot better. So what I found over the years is that the need to collect things and have things doesn't really bring me as much joy. The thing that I do now want more than ever, and this has been highlighted over the years, is not physical things, but experiences. And this is why at Christmas I don't ask for presents that much anymore with my family. I can't do it this year, but for Christmas from my Canadian family, I've just asked for flights home. And that's, now what I get from them, and that's incredible. And I love that present more than anything else, because then it's the enjoyment of seeing people and experiencing things. And I think, when all of this madness of COVID is over, I think everybody will be so desperate for that as well. And I want you to think about, like, what is it that you really want? Is it, another jacket? Or is it the ability to see a friend that you've not seen in the last 6 months? So the best experiences are the ones that come and create great laughter and joy, times with friends and family. And like I said, I've just, recently my presents are going home to Canada because it's a family that I don't get to see that often. And even just going and being in the nature and swimming in the lakes and playing in the snow is so much more worth it to me. And so presents are a lot easier for me. I ask, or to go to restaurants. I love to go to a really nice restaurant, and that's another present. And something that Harriet and I did last Christmas, and there were a few reasons for it. One, we didn't have a lot of money, and two, we didn't want to buy loads of stuff. We didn't want to contribute to rubbish and global warming. And so what we did, each of us, is we gave each other vouchers, and we wrote like voucher 1, trip to Hever Castle. Voucher 2, I'll make you a tasting menu at home. And it was quite cute, but it was really nice. And then throughout the year, if we wanted that thing, we'd pull out the voucher and be like, right, I'm asking for this present now. And it's been really fun. And I think we'll probably do the exact same thing this year as well. I just need to start thinking about what those things will be. So we exchanged 5 vouchers with dates and experiences. Some of them were a long dog walk in Blean Woods. We'd never been to Blean before. Trip to the Turner Gallery. We don't go as often as we'd like. And one last thing that I want to chat to you about is the link between Aparigraha, non-greed, and the ego. Okay? And this is something that we talk about all the time in yoga. We see this in the greed to achieve certain postures, harder variations of poses. Okay? This like, I must achieve, I must do, or I must do this many classes, or I must do it this way. And And you know, I think for some of us, there just are going to be poses that we don't achieve. I've got a really bad shoulder injury that I just can't sort of get past, and I might never be able to bind again, you know, with the comfort that I want to. And, you know, over the years, I've had to sort of forget that and let go of that, and that's okay. So the next time you go to practice, I want you to notice, okay, if you're racing ahead of your teacher, if you're like preempting what they're going to say, and if you're going for the hardest variation straight away, rather than coming into the variation that the teacher has suggested and seeing how that feels. If it feels good, maybe staying there. Allowing yourself a moment of stillness. So how can you then use Aparigraha to control and guide you through your yoga? And this is, you know, this is like one of the overarching themes of yoga, okay? Letting go of the ego, listening to the body. When you go to the mat, almost pretending that you're going to the mat to practice for the first time. Not racing ahead, not pretending that you know better. And, you know, focusing on the breath, that's a really big one. Hanging out in the position that the teacher says, rather than moving 6 steps ahead, rather than racing through that vinyasa because you think the faster that you go, the better that you're going to be. And, you know, if you slow things down, it might even feel really good. So there is always a benefit to every single pose, no matter the difficulty. And we just have to stay there long enough to absorb it. So few things in terms of Aparigraha to think about, this idea of non-greed. So looking around, thinking about the physical stuff that we've got around us, thinking about the digital, okay? What's on your laptop, what's on your computer, what's on your phone. Maybe you could spend some time clearing that out. How much of it do you really need? How much of it is it giving you anxiety? The idea of perhaps asking for experiences. Not only is this good for yourself, like your mental health, but it's also really good for the environment. Do you need to have everything wrapped in paper and have lots and lots of different belongings? And then of course your yoga practice. So like always, all of these yamas and niyamas kind of link together. This idea of non-harming, non-greed, non-violence, non-stealing, they all kind of weave in and out of each other. I hope that made sense. Hope you enjoyed the chat.